Greetings, dear listener. Bathed in the infinite love and light of the one Creator, welcome back to the deep dive.
And welcome. It's good to be sharing this space again. Namaste. We are indeed one.
Today we're diving into a really fascinating session from the Law of One Material, session 22.
That's right. It delves into some deep territory, touching on what you might call the law of wisdom. Lots of intriguing stuff in this one.
Absolutely. And our aim, as always, is to unpack it together, question by question, looking for those beautiful, insightful moments, those sort of aha connections for you, our listener.
Exactly. We want to make it engaging, positive, pull out the core insights without, getting bogged down, make it clear and resonant.
So let's jump right in. The first question in session 22 is, well, it's quite personal to the instrument. They ask about smelling incense at odd times and places.
Right. It's a sensory thing. And Ra's answer is really interesting. They say it connects back to the instrument's lifelong dedication to service.
Service, okay.
Yeah.
Like a deep-seated intention.
Precisely. A dedication that's created these conscious and unconscious leanings or distortions, as Ra calls them, towards service, especially through communication.
So that intention is powerful.
Very. And as the sessions progress, Ra explains that their collective consciousness, the social memory complex, starts to mesh more closely with the instrument's unconscious mind.
Meshing, like a merging of energies.
Kind of, yeah. At a very deep level, unconsciously, the instrument isn't consciously aware this is happening. It's happening at the roots of consciousness.
Well, okay.
And because this merging is happening, the unconscious starts sending signals, symbolic signals.
And the incense smell is one of those signals.
Exactly. Because the instrument happens to have a keen sense of smell, this thought form, this symbolic message, gets perceived as an odor.
That's fascinating. It really makes you think about our own subtle signals, doesn't it? Those intuitive nudges or feelings we get. Maybe they're messages from our deeper selves, shaped by our core intentions.
It certainly opens up that possibility. Our deepest commitments might literally be coloring our perceptions in ways we don't realize.
Okay, let's move to the second question. The instrument mentions feeling healthier after the sessions. What's Rose's take on that?
Well, Ra connects this to two main things. The instrument's free will and their history of prayer.
Prayer.
Yes. Apparently, the instrument had a practice of conscious prayer before these communications began. Helpful, Ra says, but maybe not as deep-reaching.
Right.
Now, though, during the sessions, the energy of that intention, the vibrational sound complex of the prayer, goes directly into the unconscious.
Ah, so it's bypassing the conscious mind's filters.
Sort of, yeah.
Hmm?
It directly impacts the communication coming from the spiritual level, making it stronger, clearer. And there's another part, too.
No.
Ra mentions the instrument is also starting to accept certain self-imposed limitations, things they've taken on, maybe unconsciously, to do this work.
And accepting those limitations helps physically.
Apparently so. It brings the physical body more into alignment, reducing pain and tension. It's this powerful link between mind, spirit, body, and intention.
It really highlights how our beliefs, even unconscious ones, and our intentions can shape our physical well-being. Makes you wonder what limitations we might be holding on to, consciously or not.
That's a great point for reflection. Self-acceptance seems key here.
Definitely.
Okay. Shifting gears a bit, the next few questions look back, way back, to the end of the second major cycle, 25,000 years ago. First up, average lifespan back then.
Rose's answer is interesting. They say it was generally, as you know it, so,
Yeah.
broadly similar to today,
Okay.
but with variations. They mentioned that some groups, especially those that were geographically isolated, more harmonious, less warlike,
Less bellicose, yeah.
right, those groups could live longer.
So when asked for a specific average in years.
Roz a bit cautious, saying an average is misleading, but they give a range.
Yeah.
Many lived maybe 35, 40 years, but reaching close to 100 was considered, well, normal, possible anyway. Still, that sounds much shorter than the, 700 years mentioned for earlier periods. So the next question naturally asks, why the big drop? Was it because people were less service-oriented?
Ross says that's partly correct. It ties into something they call the law of responsibility.
The law of responsibility.
Yeah, the idea that as entities grasp the lessons of third density more, they become more accountable for their choices. And by the end of that second cycle, this law was having a stronger effect.
Because people understood more, so their actions carried more weight?
Kind of. But Ra also points out that behavior was becoming increasingly warlike, more bellicose, both personally and between groups or nations.
Okay.
And there were societal shifts, too. Bartering gave way to money, ownership became a big deal, replacing more communal ways.
Sounds familiar, unfortunately.
Doesn't it? And Ross says more subtle ways of manipulating others or just focusing on self-service arose because the lessons of sharing, of gratitude were being rejected.
The lifespan shortened.
Yes. It was a consequence of not accepting that honor and duty towards the whole. A reflection of the collective consciousness, really.
It's quite sobering. Makes you look at our own societal values and wonder about the unseen consequences, even on something as basic as how long we live.
It really does. It's a direct link between collective choices and collective experience.
So, this shorter lifespan,
Yeah.
was it actually helpful in some way? Like, did it help people review their mistakes faster between lives, or did it just hinder learning?
Ra says both are true. Which is typical Ra, isn't it? Always seeing multiple angles.
Ah, yes. So how can both be true?
Well, they call the shortening a distortion of the law of one, kind of a fail-safe almost, to prevent entities getting totally overwhelmed by intense experiences, especially if they're consistently rejecting wisdom and love.
Like a forced timeout, a chance to heal and reassess between lives.
Exactly. It necessitates that healing and evaluation period. But on the other hand, Ra also says longer lives can be more helpful for really intensive learning, for reaching deeper conclusions within one lifetime.
So it's a trade-off. Frequent review versus deeper immersion. It probably depends on the person and the lesson, I guess.
That seems likely. It prompts reflection on how we ourselves learn best.
Okay, now focusing on a specific group mentioned earlier. That harvestable group in South America at the end of the second cycle. What was their lifespan like?
Ah, yes. Ram says they achieved lifespans approaching 900 years.
900, wow.
Right. Which Rand states is actually appropriate for third density when lived in harmony.
That's incredible. So the general planetary trend of life shortening didn't affect them as much.
Correct. The questioner confirms this, and Ra agrees. Their isolation, both physically and likely vibrationally due to their harmony, shielded them.
Isolation and harmony as protection. Interesting. So moving on, what was the total population on Earth back then at the end of that cycle?
Ra gives an estimate, approximately 345,000 entities incarnate.
345,000. And out of those, how many were harvestable, ready to move on?
Get ready for this. Approximately 150.
150. Out of over 300,000. That's tiny.
A very small percentage, yes.
And these 150, were they the ones who chose to stick around and help when the next cycle, our current one, started?
That's exactly right. Ra confirms they were visited by the Confederation.
Beings from elsewhere.
Yes, beings in service to the Creator. And this group of 150 expressed a desire to stay and help Earth's overall consciousness.
What dedication? What was that visit like? Can you describe it?
We're going to give some details. A being of light appeared, holding something like a shield of light.
Okay.
This being spoke about the oneness of creation, infinity, what awaits those who are harvested, describing the beauty of lived love in golden words, as Ra puts it.
Golden words. Beautiful.
And then they allowed a telepathic link, letting the 150 perceive the challenges and the plight of third density here on Earth as a whole, the being left.
Just imagine experiencing that, seeing the bigger picture, feeling that love. I could see why they'd choose to stay.
Me too. And the next question confirms, yes, all 150 decided together as a group to stay for the next 25,000 years.
As a group effort.
Yes. Ra adds that others associated with them, but not harvestable themselves, didn't stay. They just repeated third density. And interestingly, Ra notes many loving, service-oriented people today aren't wanderers, but actually come from this specific group of 150 from the second cycle.
So they've been incarnating here, working for all this time. Incredible lineage. Are all of them still here?
Ra says some few have managed to, well, graduate since then. They've been able to leave and join their brothers and sisters in higher densities.
Okay. And are any of these incredibly dedicated souls known to us from history?
Yes. Ra gives some amazing examples. St. Augustine.
Wow.
St. Teresa of Avila, St. Francis of Assisi.
Really? Saints.
Yes. And Ra mentions they often chose incarnations in environments like monasteries, places suited for continued learning and spiritual focus.
That makes sense. Gravitating towards environments that support their path. It's humbling to think of that continuity of service.
It really is, that deep dedication across millennia.
So let's shift back to the Confederation. What was their reaction when that second cycle ended 25,000 years ago and the harvest was so small?
Ra's words are simple but carry weight. We became concerned.
Concern. A sense that things weren't progressing as maybe hoped or expected? Did they take immediate action, or did they wait for a call for help?
Well, they didn't just jump in uninvited. The Council of Saturn, which seems to be a governing body within the Confederation,
Okay.
they allowed other third density souls, those seeking more experience, to incarnate here. But crucially, not wanderers from higher densities, and it was done randomly to respect free will because there wasn't a specific call from Earth yet.
So adjusting the population flow, but passively respecting free will. Action was taken eventually, though, when a call did come.
Yes, that's
They're
confirmed.
called. And what did the Confederation do then?
The call came from Atlanteans, specifically Atlanteans who were seeking understanding to better help others.
Atlanteans. Okay.
Yes.
And the response?
The response was the method we're discussing right now, imparting information through channels, like the instrument Ra was using. This very process has its roots in that Atlantean call.
Amazing. And this call happened before Atlantis got super technologically advanced, right?
Generally, yes, Ra confirms that.
So did that call lead directly to their technology? Did the Confederation give them both the spiritual stuff, the Law of One, and the tech info?
Not initially, Ra clarifies. The first contacts were more philosophical, encouraging unity studies. It was later, around the time Ra themselves appeared in Egypt,
Yep.
that other Confederation groups contacted Atlanteans. And it was requests for healing and practical applications that led to sharing information about crystals, pyramids, and these training temples.
Ah, so the need drove the specific information shared. What were these training temples like? Different from Egyptian initiation.
Ross says yes. Atlantean society then was apparently more sophisticated, less barbarous. The temples were more like centers for learning, not just places to isolate healers, more integrated into society.
And the priests there, were they like priests as we think of them?
No, not really. Ross says they weren't bound by vows of celibacy or poverty or strict obedience. They were just people devoted to learning.
Okay.
The problem started, Ra notes, when some trainees began using the crystal power for things other than healing and got involved with government seeking power.
The classic story of power corrupting. How was this information given to the Atlanteans? Was it mostly through channeling like this?
Ra says there were occasional visitations by Confederation members, but none were like major historical events in terms of bulk information transfer that way.
So direct contact happened sometimes. What conditions were needed for those visits?
Two main things, according to Ra. First, a strong enough call from a group, their unified intent, their square, had to overcome the resistance of others on the planet who weren't ready or willing.
The law of squares again. And the second condition.
This is really interesting. Ra mentions a certain naivete among the Confederation members doing the visiting.
Naivete. How so?
They assumed, based on their own past experiences where direct contact was helpful, that it would work just as well for the Atlanteans. They underestimated the potential for distortion in third density here.
So even highly evolved beings can misjudge based on their own context. And Ra confirms they were part of this.
Yes. Ra explicitly says they were among those naive members and feels a deep responsibility for the distortions that resulted from that direct sharing.
Wow.
They state it's their honor and duty to stick with humanity, essentially, until those distortions are balanced out.
That sense of long-term responsibility is just immense.
Yeah.
So the questioner tries to summarize the Atlantean story.
Right. They recap. Atlanteans aligned with the Law of One call-out. The Confederation hears due to the square overcoming resistance. They respond with channeling and direct contact, but the direct contact was a mistake because some Atlanteans misused the knowledge.
And does Ra agree with that summary?
Mostly, yes, but with a crucial correction. Ra emphasizes there's only one law, the Law of One. All these other laws, like responsibility or squares, are really just distortions or ways of understanding the one law within the specific conditions of, say, third density. They're important for tracking progress, but shouldn't be seen as separate laws. Every way is just a facet of the one.
That's a really important clarification. Everything stems from one. Okay, nearly at the end of the session. Final question about Atlantis. Their average lifespan.
Again, Rice says average is tricky. Early on, Atlanteans live maybe 70 to 140 years.
Okay, longer than the general end of second cycle average, but not the 900 years of the South Americans.
Exactly. But later, as that desire for power really took hold, their lifespans decreased rapidly, and that decline fueled the desperate search for healing tech.
Another cautionary tale about seeking power over wisdom. The session wraps up with a check-in on the instrument's comfort, right?
Yes. Ras says the instrument is okay, but the contact is clearer when everyone in the support circle is fully present and conscious.
A reminder that the group energy matters.
Definitely. They ask for that conscious awareness from the circle to keep the connection strong and thank the questioner for asking.
And Ra's closing words.
Very characteristic, expressing great joy, leaving in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. And then, go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator. Adonai.
Adonai, what a session. So much packed in there, from personal sensory experiences right through to cosmic history, responsibility, the nature of service.
Absolutely. It touches on the subtle communication from our deeper selves, the impact of collective consciousness on physical reality like lifespan, the long arc of service, the pitfalls of knowledge without wisdom.
And that constant central theme, the law of one.
Exactly. It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? How are our own inner intentions shaping our experience? What subtle messages are we maybe missing? And how does this single law of one play out in our lives and our society right now in ways we perhaps haven't fully grasped?
Powerful thoughts to sit with. How can we consciously bring our lives more into alignment with that unity? Lots to ponder. Thank you for exploring this deep dive with us.
Thank you. It's always illuminating.
Until next time, may you walk in love and light.